Welcome to the Esoteric Lounge. We are here with Squirrel Sniper, who will soon be up. I'm going to send him the link right now in case he needs it. And Sniper, I couldn't fit the whole title. So he will be up in just a bit. Send that link over. Hey, Nematus, how are you? Chef Mary, Michael, how are you? Nice to see everyone. Bringing up the big screen. I don't even know if I can pronounce every word in the title tonight. The soft and hard stab. Syncretism. I said it once perfectly earlier today. And suppression in the Christian conquest of paganism. Hey, Eric Point. How are you? How is the Christmas season off to so far for you? 2 seconds, says Sniper. Nice to see you, Eric. Guess things are heating up, so to speak, for you. Phil, how are you? Hey, guys. Our friend Rebecca is trying to get to, what was it? 1,000 subs. The last I checked, she was at, I can't drop her, I can't drop her link because it just brings it up to me, which we don't want because you're already here. Let's check. She was at 702 subs. She's still at 702 subs. What I can do is drop her handle. Not a link, but you guys can look her up and go visit. So see if you can find her. Manifest is all tucked up in bed, ready for my bedtime story. Michael, I'm glad I made it to your premiere. Demetrius says, very good, friend. Thank you. I'm glad to hear. Hey, Jessica. Jessica says, I love you, Eric. Have a good night, everyone. You too, Jessica. Thank you so much. I love you too. Oops. I forget. I'm going to get water real quick, guys. All right. Michael, you're in charge. Keep your eye on Eric Lapointe. There we go. Thank you, Manifestor. Much appreciated. Any trouble finding her through that link? That's how we do it, guys. One sub at a time. Demetrius says, welcome back. I appreciate that. Heavenly Star, how are you feeling this evening? We got a big talk coming up from Sniper. There he is. Well, thank you, Shirley. Shirley says, Merry Christmas from La Pointe. There he is. All right, Sniper, you got to help me out with this title.
Go on then. Have a go.
The soft, hard stab, Syncretism, and Suppression in the Christian... What's that?
Syncretism, yeah.
Hey, I did it. I found if I say something really fast, I'm less likely to make a mistake.
That's usually just break it down, usually 3 key syllables, and then it kind of flows. It's not synchronicity, but it sounds the same. Syncretism. It's when assimilation happens. But we'll come to that.
Okay. You ready to dive in?
Yeah, if everyone's here. Hello, Shirley.
Kat says she loves you here, Sniper.
Yeah, it's every time it's different. It's like a different wardrobe. Anyway, hope everyone's well. Happy Christmas and all that jazz. The people that are in that way inclined. We'll dive straight in. It's quite a long one, I think. It might be. We can have some questions along the way if you want, or towards the end.
Whatever
you
works
feel
for you.
like you want to dive in.
Let's see how the questions go. I know people enjoy getting them answered as things go. Otherwise, it's sort of, they have questions for that particular thing.
Prolonged. Yeah, exactly that. You know, people want instant answers, which is absolutely fine. You know, because it saves going back onto things as well. You know, because it normally opens up other questions.
True.
So we often think of Christianity, the ascent of Christianity, as purely a spiritual event. A simple substitute for one belief to another. We picture early Christianity enduring persecution. They quietly gained followers until one day they simply, superseded the exhausted religions that were around at the time, which were the pagan gods of the Roman era. But to truly understand how a small persecuted Jewish sect, right, because that's exactly what it is, became a dominant monolithic faith of the Western world, we must have to dive into a bit of a dark subject and a certainly complex truth. The deliberated, calculated, and sometimes insinuous, I think you could say, as it's assimilation of Christianity into the paganism. It wasn't a gentle transition, to say the least. It was a campaign of a cultural conquest. It was executed on 2 very distinct kind of fronts and campaigns. It was the soft stab and the hard stab is how I've put this, and I'll explain that as I go. Tonight, I'm going to be answering why the triumph over the cross, over the pantheon, was achieved through a calculated dualistic syncretism, and that's going to be the soft stab, as it were. It's a strategic absorption and blending of the pagan symbols that were about, the pagan sites, also the holidays that the pagans had, and their culture continuity. The hard stab was pretty much persecution. Deliberate destruction, violent suppression, legal banning of all forms of alternative worship that rivaled the church. Once the Christianity had secured its imperial power, and that's very important. When it got to the kings and the royalty, people started to listen, and those that, well, the evidence of the churches, also, with the calendar system, and also the ruins of the ancient philosophy are both absorbed within each other. Now, this journey will take us on from sacred wells of the Celts to the burning libraries of Alexander. So by the time at the end of this talk, we will see the Christian West as here's a word for you, a palimpsest, PALIMP, palimpsest, SEST.
That's not going to happen for me.
No, I know. It didn't happen for me either. But it's a document where the texts of the paganism is still visible beneath the Christian text. It's still visible. It's almost like Christianity has stamped their authority over the top of it. And so when you're persecuted, you either look at it as, well, the next generation will automatically take Christianity because they know nothing else. And they recognize the holidays of the paganism, and it's an easier way to absorb their own life. Now, to appreciate the scale of this whole conquest, we must first understand the world Christianity sought to replace. Now, this was a world not of atheists, but it was a world of Saturnalia. Um, it was all of the gods. The pagan landscape of the Roman Empire and northern Europe was characterized by polytheism and their flexibility. Each had their own gods. There was so many different gods for so many different purposes. The Roman religion included the state cults of Jupiter, Mars, and they had an emperor. But also universal religions like the cults of Mithras and the Egyptian cult of Isis. Now, furthermore, every town religion they called them the Genos Lokos, which means the local spirits. They had mystery cults offering promises of eternal life. Now, this system was inherently quite tolerant. Christianity, with its rigid charm to a mono exclusive meaning that could not tolerate another system, being just the one God. It saw its God. They couldn't tolerate a system that their God was one of many gods. The necessity to convert this deeply religious culture drove the first phase of this conquest. Syncretism, the Christian leaders realized that a faith that appeared too alien, too radical, would immediately be rejected. A faith that looked, smelt, and felt somewhat familiar, however, would be slowly and surely accepted. So this was the soft stab, where it was strategically weaponized. And that was the preparation for the ground assault of the hard stab. And that was the legal enforcement and persecution. So this massive section is the core argument for assimilation, focusing on how Christianity strategically co-opted the symbols of time and place. The Christian calendar is built upon the ruins of the pagan year, with Christian feasts deliberately overlaying popular pre-existing pagan festivals. The date Jesus of his birth is not reported in the Bible. The December the 25th was adopted by Rome, and that was around the 4th century, around 392 AD. And it was to conquer the widely popular winter festival that was already in place. It targeted the Saturnalia, which was the Roman feast of role reversal. It was the festival of giving gifts to each other. Critically, the birthday of the conquered sun in paganism. The concept was a simple shift from the birth of the physical conquered sun to the birth of the spiritual son of the righteousness. The writer Tertullian in the 3rd century saw this blending quite clearly, and he was horrified, and he noted how the Christian participation of pagan festivals, he wrote, "We who were strangers to all religious solemnities of the pagans, what a change is this? Now we keep the Saturnalia, the New Year's gift must be exchanged, the Feast of Winters must be solemnized. The same applies to the celebration, the resurrection." Now, the English and German names for Easter and Osten are derived from Estere and Ostera, the Germanic goddess of spring and dawn. The Ostera festival centers on fertility, rebirth, and renewal. Now, all these pagan symbols were the egg for new life, the rabbit, which is the hare, for fertility, and these were adapted. The egg became the symbolic of Christ's bursting from the tomb. The historian Bede the Venerable in the 8th century explicitly documented the origins of the name, acknowledging the seamless co-option of Estera Monath. Now, it has a name which now translates to Hashal month, and which was once called after the goddess of their name, Ostera, in the honor feasts that were celebrated that month at Easter. Now, the most effective form of the synchronism is the colonization of the sacred spaces and localized powers. Now, the church realized that the people had a deep ancestral attachments to specific sites. Instead of attempting to enforce destruction everywhere, they decided to adopt the policy of transformation. The blueprint for this was given by Pope Gregory the Great in the turn of the 7th century in 601. He advised all missionaries not to destroy temples, but to purify them and dedicate them to the service of the true God. This result is seen across Europe. The Pantheon in Rome, a temple to all gods, was saved from ruin in 609, so only 9 years after, from being consecrated as the Church of St. Mary. So they literally just stole the blueprints and changed the area. You know, it was still a holy site, but it was now holy for the Christians.
Pope Gregory caused quite a bit of trouble beyond that, didn't he?
Get into that in a bit, but that laid path for the hard stab during the persecution when the king then stepped in. The Christians, their strategy was replacing the vast pantheon of the local gods and goddesses and spirits with the saints and the Celtic goddess Bridget, associated with a sacred perpetual flame. This was in the pagan belief. She was sacred for healing. She was known for poetry. She was seamlessly converted into Bridget Kildare, an abbess, identical attributes whose feast day remains on the February the 1st and the 2nd. Similarly, the ancient practice of visiting holy wells and making offerings, that never stopped. The wells were simply just rededicated to the Virgin Mary or a local saint of the area. The soft stab was not merely a surface culture. It extended deeply, assimilating the philosophy and initiating appeal of the pagan mystery schools. Now, the success of Christianity lay in its ability to offer the spiritual satisfaction of a pagan mystery religion, a direct personal relationship with the divine, a ritual of death and rebirth, and a promise of afterlife. So the two almost compared identical in theology. But this was on a universal scale through one God. Baptism became the definitive Christian initiation rite, which is a ritual of death and rebirth, which mirrors the purification rites, which were common to the pagan cults and the other cults of the mystery schools of Mithra and Isis. The Eucharist, the Holy Communion, became the central Christian ritual offering, the consumption of divine essence, which mirrored the sacred meals of the cults of Dionysus and Mithras. A famous writer, Sir James Fraser, in The Golden Bough, one of his famous books, his common thread was undeniable when he wrote, "We remember that the death and the resurrection of a deity, followed by a communion with a worshipper, was a common feature of many ancient religions. We cannot wonder that the parallel between the Christian and some of the heathen rites of communion struck the minds of the early Christians. When Christianity encountered the complex physiological system of Neoplatism, it absorbed its structure of a divine God and a spiritual universe. The early Christian thinkers utilized the Neapolitan, the concept of logos, the divine reason and organizing principle. It described Jesus Christ as a divine intermediary. This laid the essential philosophical philosophical groundwork for the doctrine of the Trinity, giving faith the intellectual sophistication necessary to appeal to the education of the Roman elite. Because don't forget that the Romans were extreme, and they wanted to know, especially what the Egyptians and the Greeks were up to at all times. Now, pseudo Dionysus. Is there any questions before we move on? Was there any? Any questions?
Not quite yet, but there's some
Not
conversation.
quite yet.
Well, Manifested says, is that where we get Swan Vesta from the matches?
Maybe. I don't know. Possibly. Why the swan? Oh, we can go into the black swan another day. Diving back in to the 5th century, Dionysus formalized a Christian system of celestial and a hierarchy, basically, based on the ancient Neoplatism structure of spiritual ascent. The soft stab, which was the overlaying of the dates and the places could only achieve so much. The final triumph required force. Now, once Christianity was no longer a persecuted sect, so we've flipped from being the underdog to now the dominant. It could only be the powers in the throne room. The mask of it was the age of the legal tolerance. That was kind of replaced by the age of suppression. The turning point was at the end of the 4th century. The emperor's now Christian, weaponizing the law to destroy all kind of religious rivals, anyone. And this was 380 AD. It was Emperor Theodosius the First. He issued what was called the Edict of Theolossonia, making Nicene, which was a place, a Christianity's official state religion. He followed this with a devastating Theodosian decree, and this decree in 390 explicitly outlawed pagan sacrifice. It closed all the temples and banned all forms of public and private pagan worship, even lighting candles, lamps, and burning incense to their household gods. The law itself was a weapon, transforming religious practice into a political crime. No person shall pollute thyself by the sacrifice of a victim. No person shall declare or dare approach the shrines, to stroll through the temples. If any person attempts to conduct any such violation of this law, he shall be seized as the perpetrator of this crime of lese majesta, which is treason. This legal framework criminalized 1,000 years of worship. Now, the legal shift provided a fuel for the targeted violence and the destruction of the Serapeum of Alexandria. Just a year later, it was only a year later after they signed the decree. The Serapeum was a massive temple and a cultural center, systematically looted and razed by Christian crowds, and it was led by a bishop, Theophilus. Now, the pagan historian Euronopus of Sardinus testifies to this, decrying the Christian monks who carried this act, the men in black robes who possessed the tyranny of the mind they were permitted to perform a host of unholy and forbidden deeds. The ultimate expression of this hard stab was the violent suppression of intellectual paganism. The murder of the philosopher and mathematician Hypatia in Alexandria in 415 AD. It's a very dark symbol. She was seized by a Christian mob, often attributed to the followers of a Bishop Cyril, because she was seen as a powerful symbol of an independent Hellenic learning and resilient to Christian authority. She was brutally murdered with sharp objects like sharp shells and broken pottery. They dismembered her body and they burnt her remains. The Christian historian Socrates, scholar Sasticus, Scholasticus, documented the motive. She had many interviews with Osestra, the governor, and this continually excited the jealousy of the Ecelus Esastica party, which consequently they determined to murder her. Her death symbolized the brutal rejection of the classical philosophical tradition in favor of the Christian dogmatism. We have seen that the Christian conquest was not just a mere shift in a cultural operation involving both deep assimilation and outrageous violence. The soft stab of syncretism allowed Christianity to appear less foreign, to appear less familiar, to follow patterns of devotion. It created the very culture of the Christian West, whose calendars and holidays and sacred sites are palimpsest, where documents of pagan texts are still visible. Now, the hard stab of persecution ensured that this whole process was completed by eliminating any major organizations, any public religion rivals. The consequences of this conquest were enormous. The destruction of sites like the Serapeum and the end of the intellectual centers like the Hypatia school led to a profound loss of classical knowledge and philosophical continuity. Although official worship was eliminated, the underlying beliefs were simply driven underground. Belief in local spirits, nature magic, and traditional charms persisted in folk practices for centuries, often simply just renaming it superstition. The victory of Christianity was achieved not through the powers of its message, but through the genius of its leaders who mastered both the art of deception through adaptation and the use of absolute power. It's a history that forces us to look beyond theology and examine the raw mechanics of culture and political dominance. So, the next time you see a church on a hill, or we celebrate a holiday in the winter, like the one that's coming up, or if we read a passage about the Trinity, remember that you are witnessing the complex, sometimes beautiful, but often violent legacy of these two-pronged conquests. For despite all the laws and the destruction, the spirit of the old world were never truly banished, only renamed. They persist not in the temples or scrolls, but within the very core of our shared experiences. Now, we are all still living monuments of the conquest, the conquered gods. Our rituals, our celebratory days, are their memories. Our deepest fears are their echoes. The ultimate question should be not what we believe, but who do we have buried inside us? And there we have it.
You ready for some questions?
I'm ready.
That was, by the way,
Dude,
a very, very tight presentation.
I should have pulled back on some of the words.
Well, I mean,
When I went through it twice, to myself, in my head, I could say the words fine.
right.
When I said them wrong twice, it was like, well, there you go.
You, I mean, you packed a lot of information in a very, uh, for me, this was my. I liked last week's. I think this might have been my favorite though. Like I
Yeah,
said, a lot of information.
I try and get a lot of information in, but I try and break it down in such a way that it's not too much information on one certain thing. They're important information as we go along.
Right. To
And I
me,
think
this
that's the
reminded
key.
me of some
You
of
can get
the.
lost.
It reminded me of some of the university, only 2-year degree, but university lectures that I said, and very engaging with a ton of information. This was my favorite.
Yeah.
So the first question was by Miss Blipper, which I pinned. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, Manny. Venerable. Not vulnerable. He probably was never vulnerable. Is it who or what is buried inside of us, or both? Well, the what determines who.
Do you see Manifestor's question?
His latest one, not sure what venerable means.
Nope. I'll pin it real quick.
The one before.
Do you think the fact
Do you not
that
think,
you see it?
yeah. Do you not think that the fact that the Celtic Christian Church that was very well established well before the Catholic Augustine came to Canterbury, meaning that maybe had a bit of shenanigans going on? Well, I think when you have to look at the scale of Canterbury. Canterbury is a huge cathedral. It had to be taken over. Now, Canterbury, you have the Canterbury Tales from Canterbury, and it was a major part in the Roman road in the UK. So, of course, Christianity would want to make sure that the pathway, the main road that they had, would have had the largest structure. You usually find those areas are just 1 day travel from the coastline, which was where you'd want supplies after 1 full day's travel from the coast. And that's where you will find the largest of all the structures.
Miss Flipper wants to know where on God's earth did the goddess go?
Indeed. Well, everyone says, Jesus is king, but where's the queen? Every king needs a queen. And so they stamped their authority, and I want to say that they are still using the dualistic, but it's unbalanced.
You wonder if Christianity had broken off completely from its Judaic roots, if there would have been a more organic expression of the divine feminine and masculine at the same time.
Yeah. I think, yeah, just because everything in nature it has to have balance. It has to have balance. You
Wonder,
can't have one without the other.
I wonder why of all the religions at that time, Judaism was one of the few that didn't have a feminist streak really running through it.
Mm. The male dominance, that's the power, and that's what the churches wanted. And then I think that with the offshoots that you see, you have the Catholic, which does push the feminine, divine, with Mary. But it's the Mother Mary.
Interesting comment from Manifester. Also, they say that Ireland was never conquered by the Romans, but they did really through Christianity, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah. And that's where we see the serpents, being chased off. by St. Patrick. You know, the serpents were the gnosis, as those that are most grounded lay closest to the ground.
I wonder why symbolically he stopped at Ireland.
There was nowhere else left. He chased them from now, if I remember rightly, it was from the east coast to the west coast, which meant across the Atlantic was what the proposal was, which is what happened within your constitution.
I was thinking other parts of, like, how come he didn't go into England and chase the snakes out? As you guys still have a couple snakes, right?
In which sense?
Well, obviously not metaphorically, but I guess we could take it metaphorically as well. I mean, so what was it about Ireland that uh, is serpent free? Both metaphorically as well as, let's say, uh, geographically.
Okay, geographically, the furthest place away from Egypt at that time was Ireland. They had already been to Asia. They'd realized the Danes had come from the north and settled as well. The Normans, the Norman invasion, the Anglo-Saxon. Ireland was almost like a holy of holy places, because it was the most distant, and it was also an island. Now, there was another island to the northwest of Ireland, which is no longer on any maps. It was from maps from before 1680. And there's some speculation as to what happened to that around the events around 1600.
What is the age of not physical age, but the historical age of Saint Patrick? What years?
What years St. Patrick? If I remember rightly, they were talking so they've got to be the 15th or 16th century, if I remember rightly, but don't quote me on that.
Was Simon Magus a fun guy? That's what
Maybe.
Miss Clipper wants to know.
Depends what his alchemy's like, you know?
Lots of what's if Christianity. Um, Imagine if there was some type of introduction of plant medicine in the early days of Christianity.
Well, back with the, we're going back to the Christmas trees, um, when they used to hang the mushrooms to dry out on the upturned tree. The tree would be inside for 12 days, which would be the exact time to dry out a mushroom. It would be until the outer skin starts to peel off by itself. They used to induce on the Christmas day, and after eating it, they would have an experience that they would share with each other, and it would also guide them through the next year. And this was a yearly religion ritual every winter, usually with the fly agaric.
Imagine if the sacraments were a bit different.
Mm. Well, I mean, some of the Greek, they weren't very kind either with
Right.
their sacrifices. We have an ancient ritual. We have the story of the um, the sacrifice to the sea god Titan, and what was required was a virgin who was pure of heart, that was normally drugged because they would not be able to show any fear, because then that would displease the god Poseidon. That was it, Neptune. And what they would do is that they would place a squid over the face. I don't know if you know how a squid eats.
Absorption?
It has a beak. It wasn't a very nice tale.
I
Now,
bet.
this is where we get the image of Medusa with her head full of snakes.
Hmm.
It's the metaphor for the ritual. And Pegasus, the flying horse, the miraculous horse with white wings. The Greeks used to run a white horse off the cliff edge into the sea as a sacrifice, which is where we get the flying horse from, of Pegasus. Not a
What do you think?
literal flying horse, but horse is also hippo in the Latin, in Greek.
What do you think of some esoteric lounge where we talk about sacramental rituals from paganism, indigenous tribes, and modern religions?
Mm. Even all the way going through to the Inquisition, if you like. Because that was all a sacrifice as well. In fact, that was probably the biggest sacrifice throughout time, the Inquisition of Europe and America through Christianity.
You got anything else in mind leading up to anything for Christmassy?
I'd like to maybe do some old Christmas stories, maybe do a couple of tales, I should say.
I'd like to get into who Saint Nicholas really was. What was he up to? Why is he coming down
mm,
my chimney?
Why is he coming down your chimney? Indeed. Well, that's the Santa coming down the chimney. Is the Christ oil that has to go down your spine.
Now, Nicholas was actually a Turk, wasn't he?
Yep. Yep. The same with St. George.
Was it?
St. George was also Turkish. So we have to really think about, we say they're very English, but yes, it's more of a,
Swarthy?
yeah.
People aren't going to like that, are they?
Yeah,
No one wants a
yeah.
swarthy Santa.
No one wants a swervy one.
It's funny how we've lightened up so much, including uh, our image of Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I think St. Nick is depicted in Italy. I think St. Miss Blipper saying that it was blue. And we had originally we had green before the red for Santa, and that was again Christianized because that was what the cardinal, or not the cardinal, he would have been an archbishop at the time. He always wore green. So yes. Good evening, CC.
Wasn't hey Cece, wasn't Augustine well, he was African,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
but I don't think that he is depicted that way. It was Berber descent. So
I'm waiting for a download. There's nothing coming. I need to look deeper into Africa. Really, I started to look into Africa, especially their mountain ranges there. They even have a Mount Muru. And of course, we have on the old maps Mount Muru as the center of the North Pole. But I'm always drawn to how all the maps previously depict the center of Earth as the pyramids.
I've always been fascinated by the Atlas Mountains.
Yeah. Pyrenees, the Alps. That brings Switzerland into the play. Switzerland is the home of the octagon. And in many magic rituals, the octagon is a very powerful symbol. And when you look at Switzerland, it has its own laws, like no other country.
Hey, what do you think about talking about communication between ancient places that we don't often think about, like Chinese to America, well before Columbus? Yeah. I've often heard.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, found in the Egyptian tombs, there was cocaine found from South America, and there was opium found from China. So the Egyptians had to have been to both places and traded. I would have thought they would have traded with both.
Right. Phoenicians as well. They were quite a silly people, and the reason why they wouldn't have not crossed the Atlantic.
Well, the Phoenicians were known as the boat people.
Right. That would be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Like, Easter Island have very African features, right?
Easter Island is, well, Jess will back me up on this. The structures that have been found on Easter Island, once they've been dug up because they're buried, the hands on each of the structures are in front of them, and they're just in front, just about to touch. Identical as the ones in South America. Almost identical. They're worshipping the same people. And they believed that was Inky. The Anunnaki.
Evan says, have you guys seen the huge drawing on rocks in Peru?
In Peru. Possibly, many. Yeah, possibly.
I think that might be got a Graham Hancock book here. Supernatural. And I think he mentions them.
Yeah.
You a fan of Graham Hancock?
No. He opens up people's eyes, but if you were to open that book, have you got it right next to you?
Sort of. If my cat will let me. Too bad. Speaking of cat, too bad Cat wasn't here. She says I can never find a book when I need it. Here's the proof that I can. What do you need?
Just looking at the structure of how it's written, how is the let me have a look at the text. Yeah, how much space is on that? How much space is in between the words on that page? Can you see?
Um,
Can you see the
yeah, I don't.
writing's big, and that there's a lot of gaps between the sentences and the words,
Oh, right.
and it's
Yep,
yeah, yeah. There's no information in there. It's a big book,
it is.
but now you look at some of the books from 1900s. That you will have to have a micro, a very, a very good monocular to look at the words because they're packed so small with thousands of words on one page. Yet he gets away with 35 words on one page, and then there's more space on the page than anything else.
Right.
And there's space between the lines like no other book. So before you've even read anything in it, it's just it's not information.
Evan, this is
It's not
called
knowledge.
right. This is called supernatural.
Right. Now it,
Make it
he
easy.
and many others have one gain, and their gain is to push the the thinking of Atlantis to 9,600 years into the past. He says it sank 12,000 years ago, where he's he's got the information from a previous source, which gives the wrong time calendar frame, stating that a year, they've calculated these as years, where an Egyptian year was a lunar cycle of 28 days.
Hmm.
So we have to divide his number by 13. It's 13 times sooner, which brings it round about 3000 BC. Exactly. A Shah is a day. It's one turning of the sky.
Right.
So they had this agenda to push everything further back. And they want to attach the Ice Age to it, where really evidence and record shows that the Ice Age happened in almost an instant. There's no way that we could get fossilized jellyfish. We get fossilized creatures predating on other creatures while they're in the middle of eating them. That doesn't happen over a long time. That's an instant. There's records of fossilizations of animals giving birth. That doesn't happen over a long period of time. That's an instant. It's when everything freezes. And then the minerals break down and fossilize.
Interesting.
We get a query like woolly mammoths. They say that they've been dug out of the ice. So we instantly think that they come from very cold places. But what I've to tell you that the woolly mammoth has exactly the same hair structure, which is hollow. The only other animal that has hollow hair is the gorilla, which is in a tropical climate, enable it to cool itself in the heat. So that kind of makes us think, where Russia we call the tundra would have been completely different. We have maps of Antarctica from China from the 1600s with mountain ranges and villages and streams and rivers. And even now, scientists are saying to us, that they have mapped structures under the ice in Antarctica and terrain and rivers, derivatives. We do not know where we are. To say that we know, they're lying.
I would agree.
Who even called this place Earth?
Thank you, Shirley. Just says only NASA.
Yep. And it's very strange, this 3A Atlas, not one single comment NASA has made. How strange. It's almost as if they're leaving it up to everyone else to make what they will.
Well, we're going to get ready to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Thank you for today.
Been a good one.
Appreciate this.
Thank you.
I appreciate you all the time, but this one was resonated. Cece says, "Thank you for setting me free again, but still angry."
Well,
someone's always angry at me.
You got to be angry at some point, but the anger fuels you. If you know that you're angry, you can deal with it. It's when you bottle that anger up and you don't say you're angry. you're on your path.
Right. Well, then I'm just doing my part, helping
Or an
people.
observer, you know. We
I go back to the prayer I say every day. I am only here to be truly helpful, and I do my best to live by it.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Just be yourself. Don't try and be anyone else. That's what I see a lot of people doing. You know, they say, "Oh, you know," and I was even that. I wanted to be a stunt man. I really wanted to be Lee Majors when I was a kid growing up. You know,
Because of Heather
throw
Thomas.
myself. It was that as well. Yeah, but even before girls were involved, you know, I was throwing myself. I used to get all the cushions off the sofa, and we had quite a few sofas. I was quite lucky, and there maybe must have been 10 of these big cushions, and I'd throw myself off of this 20th step onto these cushions, knowing that I would not hurt myself because there are so many cushions. As long as I made the 20th step, and you have to throw yourself.
Hmm.
It's not as if you have a little jump because you're only going to make it, you know, past the 9th or 10th step. So you've got to really enjoy it, and that's what having an experience is about. Don't have a half-hearted experience, even if it's a bad experience. Acknowledge it because you learn from it.
Right. Hey, Star Seeker says, "Thank you, Squirrel. I'm so grateful for your energy, time, and thoughts."
Thank you very much.
I'll look for that, Evan. He's around Tiger King. Tiger King was asking about Adam. He was here. Who was it? Sunday.
Yeah,
You guys talked a bit about NASA.
yeah, a little bit about NASA. I mean, we could go into how NASA was formed and how it's very connected to Aleister Crowley, you know, and
Hey,
the rituals.
the Esoteric Lounge is yours to take it in the direction you see fit.
All right, well, we'll we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I think December. I think we should keep it not too dark. I think it should be more of a celebrating time.
Right. Our good friend She Cooks is here. We're wrapping up for the night, but I appreciate you guys coming in. Every Wednesday, occasionally we switch over to a Tuesday, depending on what's going up. I appreciate your flexibility, as well as Miss Flipper's flexibility. And but basically every Wednesday night, 5:25, the doors open. Never know what to expect, but you know you're gonna get something good, something that you don't normally think about.
Question from Tiger: do you believe that is another place apart from Earth? There we go. That people live on it. Very good question, Tiger King. I believe they tell that we live on a ball, a planet, so we do not investigate any further. Imagine being in a field and this field has got a fence around it. The first thing you're going to do is walk around the fence and realize that you're fenced in. Then your next question is going to be, what's on the other side of the fence? You can see as far as the eye can go, but what's the other side of where the eyes can't see? Now, if you imagine that the Antarctic Treaty is the imaginary fence that we've been told, that's the furthest that we can travel. A, for our safety, and B, because there's nothing else there. Yet America spent a lot of time and money and resources at the end of the Second World War going down to Antarctica with a huge army, and their excuse was that they were looking for the remnants of the Nazis who had strategically retreated to the Antarctica, New Swaziland. Yes, I did, Manny. There's also supposedly one on the moon. The
So,
Masonic
what do you think?
lodges.
Lounge topic?
Definitely a lounge topic. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Make your list.
Antarctica. It's going to be long.
Maybe if you want to write one up, we can do one on post for you and a post for me. What do you guys want to see?
Yeah. We do have a little vote. Throw a few through out there, and then I can get what people would like to hear. If more people want certain things, then do I believe in aliens? No, I don't. I don't believe in little green men or little grey men. But I do believe in interdimensional beings.
Yep.
Which is
Another
energy.
topic.
Another topic.
I like that one a lot.
The use of aliens is militarized. It is. They go hand in hand. The precision is textbook.
All right.
See you.
I'm going to wrap things up.
Yep.
Head to bed.
I'll
I know it's late for you.
Night all.
Thank you again, Sniper.
Pleasure.
Guys, I'm going to say goodbye to you as well. Appreciate everyone coming in and hanging out. Remember, Esoteric Lounge. If you see Esoteric Lounge, the only reason you didn't see Esoteric Lounge, because this was the longest title yet. I could barely fit this one in. So anytime you see it, if you got a topic, run it by Scroll Sniper. All things are under consideration. Remember, it is the Esoteric Lounge, so let's keep it in that direction. We have plenty of live streams where we cover maybe let's call it the less esoteric. This night, This night is for School Sniper. All right. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye. I'll be live again 5 a.m. I don't have any guests as of now until next week, but I'm starting to line people up again. So come on by. Keep me in mind. I appreciate everyone. Eric, not going one time a day. Please get back to the word you are. It's going to be okay, Tiger King. It's been presented to me about doing a podcast instead of live streams. Talking with a guest. But we'll see. I've always wanted to be, since I knew about him, I've always wanted to do a podcast. I sort of thought of my live streams as a podcast. But a podcast, who knows? Who knows? Hammer, it's good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Peace, CC. All right, I love you guys. I gotta go. Oh, that Pathfinder's got a premiere on Sunday. Hey, Phil, keep dropping the links. When you have the link up and ready to premiere, keep dropping it, and we'll keep putting it out. Love you too, Tag King. Yeah, that's the downside. I don't edit anything. I don't edit my writing. When I made them into book forms, I had an editor. I don't do it myself. Hey, Sissy. Thank you, Cypress. Trump is going to drop the link when available. Good. All right. You have a good night too, Jess. Love you guys.